Joining us now, Eddie Yeranian, our man in the Middle East. He is with the Voice of America. He's with CBS News Radio. He's with the John Frederick Show. He's with everybody. He's live. He's in Cairo. Eddie, happy 4th of July.
Happy 4th of July, John.
It's been too long. Okay, now let's go to Egypt. 5 years since Sisi took power. And after months of protests demanding the newly elected president, Mohamed Morsi, stepped down, Sisi said the coup was necessary 5 years ago to, quote, prevent Egypt from slipping into a dark tunnel of civil unrest. So it's been 5 years since Egypt's first democratically elected president, Mohamed Morsi, was overthrown in the military coup. So where are we with this now?
Well, the country is stable. A lot of people are questioning the stability, saying that they think the economy could cause people to go out and protest again. I think that's wishful thinking on their part. I don't think that's going to happen. And I don't think we would even be here if the Muslim Brotherhood had come to the realization that they were no longer in power and said, okay, we're just going to participate in the government with whatever percentage of support we have. And rather than going on the rampage against the police and the army and trying to wreck the economy. But, you know, I'm in a bit of a minority here because I've gotten into sort of discussions with people on Twitter and whatever about where the Muslim Brotherhood was leading Egypt. And one fairly Muslim Brotherhood type who works for the Brookings Institute told me that the theory that Mohamed Morsi was leading Egypt to an Islamist dictatorship was debunked. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, who debunked that? And he proceeded to show me an article he wrote. And he said, well, what is your... I said, okay, I'm willing to let you have your opinion. I don't need to prove that you're wrong. And then he started going at me, well, what is your proof? And I think he didn't know I was based in Cairo. And I said, well, I've been here for 10 years. And he said, well, what are your sources? And I said, well, I've probably got better sources than you do because I've been on the ground here for 10 years. So I think part of the problem is there are people, analysts, some of them paid by different foreign governments and media outlets that have been portraying the situation a bit differently from what we see on the ground here. And I really don't want to get into a conflict with all of these people. But at the same time, I think what I'd like to say is that Egypt would not be in an economic bind as it is today, would not have had to borrow money from the International Monetary Fund if the economy hadn't tanked and the tourists had gone away. Now, the tourists went away because you had the Muslim Brotherhood and their friends carrying out terrorist acts supported by several Middle Eastern governments, which has been proven. I'm sure the fellow from the Brookings Institution would say it's been debunked, but it really hasn't. And, the two planes that got blown up, the Russian plane over the Sinai and the Egyptian plane coming back from Paris over the Mediterranean, if those planes hadn't gone down, the tourism sector would have picked up quite nicely. And God only knows what happened with those planes. And I really don't have any inside information, but I am suspicious that they were not just accidents. So anyway, leave it at that.
How does President Sisi get the Egyptian economy back to where it needs to be so they're not in debt and borrowing money from the IMF, Edward?
Well, he's got to prove to the outside world that the country is safe. I can tell you it's safe, but nobody will listen to me. The New York Times and the Washington Post keep putting out the news that it's not safe. I think the New York Times, as some Egyptian analysts pointed out, used to run full-page ads for the Egypt Air, and Egypt canceled those ads. So they probably have double reason to be angry at Egypt. But anyway, they keep putting out the news that it's not a safe destination. There are a few things that are probably not safe. You probably can't go in the street without running the risk of getting run over. But, generally, it's a lot safer than Chicago.
Well, you can say that. Now, what percentage, and I'm not asking you for an exact number, but just off the top of your head, what percentage of the Egyptian economy is dependent on foreign tourism, Edward Yeranian?
I believe about 20%.
That's a big number.
It's a number I remember from a story I did for the Voice of America in 2009.
That's a big number.
Yeah, I think so.
We're with Eddie Yeranian. He's our man in the Middle East. He's live in Cairo. He's with CBS News, the Voice of America, and the John Fredericks Radio Network. Been with me since I started. Eddie, can you believe we've been together now 8 years?
It's been a long time, John.
I mean, that's a long
hard
time.
To believe.
That's a long time to be speaking to each other like 2-3 times a month. 8 years is a long time. Going on 9 when we come to January, God willing, right? But it's good to have you with us now. Egypt top appeals court overturned the terror list ruling on former President Morsi. The court annuls the verdict that placed more than 1,500 people on the national terror list, including an ex-football player, soccer player in our language. Egypt's top appeals court overturned this verdict, and it's called the Court of Cassation, I believe, returned the case back to a lower court for reconsideration. What is the deal here?
Well, I think politically speaking, you can read a lot into that. Personally, my reaction was that it's a trial balloon to start normalizing relations with the Muslim Brotherhood if they reciprocate in some way. It's not going very far, but I think they would want the Brotherhood to reciprocate, as I said. And that's just my take on it. I haven't heard any other people saying that. But I think now that President Sisi has been reelected, he is not fearful of the Muslim Brotherhood. They're pretty much subdued, except for the countries that support them, Turkey and Qatar. And I think it's probably time. A lot of people would like to normalize relations. It would improve the economy. And a lot of people say that they probably should be represented in Parliament. I'm only hearing that in private. Mm-hmm. But it would go a long way to improve the economy and improve the climate, politically speaking, as well.
So, opinion standpoint, Eddie Yeranian, you're in favor of this ruling, and it sounds like what you're saying is you're in favor of normalizing relationships with Muslim Brotherhood, which Turkey and Qatar claim is a legitimate political party. Like them or not, they do get elected. They do win seats, kind of like Hamas in various areas. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, I don't like the Muslim Brotherhood, and I've never made a secret of that. But I do believe they should be able to participate in the political process. Mm. Now, if they come to power, as they did here in Egypt, and they try to take over and turn the country into an Islamist dictatorship, well, that's where you draw the line. And I think that's why we had a coup.
Mm-hmm. You're in favor of them participating. I mean, it would seem to me that after what happened, they would not have any chance of electing another president on their platform based on the debacle that was caused by that and, jobs going away and tourism drying up and the economy going down. But on the other hand, stranger things have happened. Let me just ask you something, and then I'm going to get to the Syrian situation. What is the nature of the Turkish-Qatari close relationship? What is that based on?
Well, I believe it's based on the fact that both of their governments, their rulers, Mr. Erdogan and the Emir of Qatar, I would say his father, probably, I don't know if the young man, current Emir really has that strong political opinions. Perhaps he does. I think the father and Mr. Erdogan were Muslim Brotherhood supporters. That's why they were supporting the Muslim Brotherhood here in Egypt and everywhere else. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're still supporting them in Libya. They're still supporting them in Tunis. And they're still supporting them in Sudan. Mm-hmm. The Bashir, the dictator of Sudan, is a Muslim Brotherhood guy. Mm-hmm. The Western media never talks about any of this stuff. So you have to ask yourself what where they're coming from, why they ignore all these facts, and what their objectives are.
I talk about it.
You do.
Western media.
You do.
I'm it, though. It's a lonely voice out there. It's a lonely voice.
You really
so
are.
The Qataris claim that it's a legitimate political party like Hezbollah or Hamas. I mean, that's what they claim. But, there's certainly evidence that goes way beyond them being any sort of a political movement. So I get what you're saying there. Look, I've only got a minute and a half, but I've got to get your take on what is Jordan going to do now. They've got 1.3 million Syrian refugees in their country. What's the plan?
Well, I think they're hoping that they reopen the border very quickly and the situation in the south of the country normalizes and that a lot of these people can go back home. Now, you have a number of governments, probably about 10 of them, that are meddling in Syria. I've counted on various occasions, and a lot of them don't want to see the situation inside Syria normalize, including people in our own intelligence apparatus, which is battling President Trump, has been battling him and continues to battle him. And, I think they need to be put in their place. The president needs to control those intelligence apparatuses.
What does normalcy look like? Just Assad back in power of the whole country? And I've only got a half a minute.
Well, certainly opening the main road between Damascus and Amman is a sign of normalcy. And what is the importance there? Well, first of all, you have people that can move back and forth. Mm-hmm. Second of all, you have trade. Half of Lebanon's foreign trade with the Gulf goes through Syria and Jordan, or at least it used to. And then you have, things like gas and oil. It's
all right. So you got to open up the roads, Eddie.
Incalculable. And
Eddie, we're out of time. Thank you.